Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kennel NRL podcast. We've had a bit of a big week. Yesterday we released the interview that we did with Josh Reynolds, and it's going gangbusters. So if you haven't seen that, click onto our channel, watch it, but after you watch the live stream. So stay with us. We do have a special guest with us today, someone who has been on the podcast before and was a lot of fun, and someone who I just love talking footy with. And we've got Tareq Ahmed, a hardcore North Queensland Cowboys supporter, and a Queensland supporter who lives in New South Wales. Welcome back, Tareq.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice introduction too. It's good to be back and talk a bit of footy.
It's lovely to have you, bro. Lovely to have you. I guess a bit of agenda for today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the State of Origin teams. Then we're going to do a mid-year review on the Dogs, the Cowboys, a couple of the other teams that we follow, and then we're going to preview the Bulldogs and Roosters game. But I guess we'll jump straight into it. State of Origin teams. Tareq, what do you think of the teams named?
Yeah, look, I actually think they're a pretty good job. Like, look, with the Queensland team, you know, they usually stick to what they know, regardless of what the form is, and it usually works out pretty well. I think New South Wales made some pretty decent decisions in terms of some of the changes. Look, I personally think Matt Burton should have been in the halves. I don't care what anyone says. I personally believe that he's really, in the last few years, you know, ever since he left the Panthers and moved to the Dogs, yes, it's taken him some time, which is understandable considering that he was in the centres for a long time.
He was a rubbish team.
And he had a pretty bad team for a couple of years, but just to see Burton come to where he is, I think maybe that's what New South Wales needs. Like, maybe he's probably the long-term half. Otherwise, look, Dylan Edwards, I personally rate him, and I think he's an underrated player. Yes, he performs week in, week out, but you don't necessarily see him put in with the big names or the biggest names in the NRL like that are in fullback. Yeah. So I think this time it's going to be a bit better, as long as no one gets sent off in the first few minutes, which I've also got a problem with, even though, yes, I've been supporting Queensland for a long time. Still have a lot of issues with that, with the referees and just the discrepancies and the change. Like, every time it's just a different ruling on whether something's sin binned or sent off. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just on that, if you haven't seen us before, or if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like the video, subscribe. It really helps us, keep getting the guests on and putting all these on. But actually, you mentioned the refereeing. What we're going to do this a bit later as well. We're going to do a mid-year refereeing review as well. Yeah. We'll have a bit of a rant because, man, the refereeing, man, it needs to be spoken about. I think there's a lot of rubbish that's happening at the moment that is ruining the game. But I agree that send-off threw everything up. Look, for me, like as a New South Welshman, I think the most exciting thing out of the whole team is that Latrell's back. He hasn't played since 2021, but this is the type of bloke, like, if he's on his day, he's going to tear Queensland apart.
I think he'll play well regardless. Like, when it comes to State of Origin, he's a different player. Like, yes, he probably has one quiet Origin, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want to put Latrell Mitchell in your team. Yeah. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the strength. So personally, I think it's a no-brainer that he should be in the squad. Potentially, maybe be at fullback. I don't know. Edwards
really?
is a great fullback, but I don't know. Latrell is different when it comes to Origin. His size, his speed, his agility. Like, he's a great player, and I personally think maybe he should be in fullback. I could probably be wrong, but we'll see how he goes.
So Latrell at fullback, I think that's an interesting one. I was saying before on when we were talking about game one and the team selection, I thought that it was such a pity that Turbo's injured, because I think if Turbo's not injured, he's the first fullback that needs to be chosen.
For sure. I'm talking in the consideration that Tom is injured at the moment. Look, Tommy Turbo's just a whole new player. They should just rename him the Manly Warringah Travojevic. Like, pretty much. That's what they should be doing, because he's another level. If he was injury-free, I do believe that maybe... Look, and it's a tough one because they're both great players, like both Turbo and Mitchell. Maybe, like, Mitchell is probably going to be a lot more beneficial in the centres. Yeah. Like, I think Turbo is less effective maybe in the centres when you're comparing him to Mitchell, which is probably why you'd put him at fullback. Nonetheless, both great players.
Bro, I would honestly, if Turbo wasn't injured and Latrell's there, I would throw them anyway. Just throw them guys. Just put them. I want them in the team. I don't care where they play. Yeah. Let them get their hands on the ball.
Fullback role though is such an important role. I think, like, people don't recognize the importance of the fullback and what they do at the back. Like, it's not just a matter of just standing there and catching the ball.
That's
like,
right.
They're directing. They're like, a good fullback is almost like a second halfback.
Yeah, 100%.
Where they're directing from behind. They can tell players what to do, where to go, where to come, and it's like a lot of coordination happening in the back that we don't see. I think we don't appreciate the role of the fullback as much as we should be appreciating it.
No, and you look at what Scott Drinkwater does for the Cowboys week in, week out. Like, I think, their halves, Dearden's excellent and Townsend's doing an okay job, but I think it all comes off the back of Drinkwater. I think he's been so instrumental over the last 3 years. And then you look at Connor Tracy at the Bulldogs. He's come in. Like, he's essentially playing as a second seven. Like, he's
Pretty
set
much.
up against the Eels. He had 3 try assists.
Yeah.
Against the Knights, he had 3 try assists. Against, who was the team who played for the Knights? Whoever it was that we beat. The Dragons, he had 3 try assists. So he's actually been getting more and more try assists than even our halves. And it shows you the importance of the fullback running over 200 meters a game.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And I agree. And that's why I don't know if Latrell would be right at fullback for Origin, but at center, bro, if he's got, because if you imagine if it's Latrell and Lomax on that edge, Queensland won't know what hit him.
Lomax, he's having a good season.
Bro, he's having a cracker
Like,
season.
the fact that I can't believe they let him go. Like, I actually can't believe they let him go, and out of everywhere to the Eels as well. Like,
It must hurt. Imagine losing your best player to the Eels.
Like, week in, week out, this guy's putting in meters. He's putting in try assists. He's doing some amazing things. But look, I think Origin 2 is going to be a better game.
Much
so
better
as
game.
long
I
as
agree,
there's
I
no
agree.
send-offs,
Yeah.
like very questionable. And, I found that very questionable, the call to send off. I thought that was harsh. I think it ruined the game. I actually ended up falling asleep because I was like, I was tired. I had a big day. But nonetheless, I did watch it, and I think New South Wales did okay to actually hold on for a while before the game actually opened up. So look, there's good signs for the Blues. I think there's good signs, and people are going to question Madge and what he's doing, but you got to give it some time, to see if it actually works.
This is the first Origin team that's been picked, and I would say the last 3 years, that I've said to myself, my biggest complaint is who the 18th man is. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, for a long time, right, my only real complaint is, who's 18th man or who's 19th man, for example.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the bench, Linu and Olakwatu, I thought performed very, very well.
Yeah.
So as did Yo. I think Yo was
Yeah.
okay, minus that intercept pass that he threw to Daly Cherry Evans, bro. The guy finds it. Anyway, and Cameron Murray comes straight in for McInnes. Like, he's one of the best second rowers locks in the game. Like, he would walk into literally
reliable.
every single team
Yeah.
in the competition. And then, the rest of the team speaks for itself. Like, Mitchell Moses, I think, okay, he's been a little bit rusty. He's been out for 8 weeks. It's come back, been a bit rusty. But you know what? He will do a job. He's long kicking game, and he's playing on the right-hand side. If he can if he can give early ball to Crichton, and then him and Toto can do to the Queenslanders what the Doggies did to the Eels at that game, just absolutely tear him around. And, Latrell, but he should have been the game one, even if it was just coming back. Honestly, I would have just thrown Latrell in there.
Straight in. Like, you don't question that. I don't know why they question it. Like,
Queenslanders, Inglis would be out for 3 months. He's not even due back. They'll be like, no, we're going to name Inglis.
Like,
we're going to hope for the
think
best.
about like Dane Gagai, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know he's not in the starting squad, but he's in the extended squad.
Yeah.
Like, he's obviously maybe because of age and all that sort of stuff. But Dane Gagai is a great example of like an Origin player.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
he will turn up, even though he wouldn't be playing well for the Knights, or he still plays pretty decently. But as you get older, you slow down.
Yeah.
And I think New South Wales maybe needs to take a very similar approach. Like, you've got your reliable players, the ones that are going to turn up week in, week out. Trust the process. And I think for the Blues, I think the halves combination is going to play a really big role. The chemistry between Luai and Moses I think it's going to be really important. Like you said, Mitchell Moses with a long kicking game, let him do that while Luai does all the other stuff that he does. And I think once they find that good balance, they'll play really well, because they're coming up against Cherry Evans. And look, Cherry Evans, when it comes to Origin, he's a whole different player. This guy is...
Look, can I be really, really honest? This is such a New South Welshman thing to say, but I actually don't think he had that great of a game against the Blues in game one. Honestly, I actually think that the Queensland team looked good because they were playing
New
12.
South Wales, yeah.
Like, we were in until the 65th minute, and we probably would have been even better in it if we had a better 7. Look, no disrespect to Hines, I just don't think he's it.
No, but what I mean by Cherry Evans is overall, like, absolutely, like, you're right, probably game one, probably not the best game, but overall, he plays such a good role for Queensland. So
consistent.
And like, look who you've got coming up, like Dearden.
Yeah.
I personally, a big Cowboys supporter. When he first came to the Cowboys, I thought, what are you doing?
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Like, and I think a lot of that comes from, maybe, obviously I don't have that expertise as a coach, but coming from the Broncos let go of him, and I thought he's not doing well for the first year. But then the second year, what happened? He turned into like this other player, and now when you watch the Cowboys play every single week, this person is turning up every tackle. Like he's not a big player, but when you watch him tackle, it's like he's a front rower.
Man, he made against the Raiders. Was it against the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
He made like 3 try-saving tackles.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, who is this guy?
Over the line, like all they had to do was put it down, and this guy was just everywhere.
He's fantastic. Like I'm a big fan of Dylan, and I remember when he was playing for the Broncos, I was like, this guy shouldn't even be anywhere near first grade. This guy's rubbish. But obviously they were having that poor season, the Broncos. But look, Todd Payton's done really well to bring him to where he is as a coach. But it's interesting, man. Queensland just seemed to get these players and turn them into superstars. Like he was so smart in game one. Like he knew where the gaps were when he had Swali off. Just kept passing the ball to the left, passing to the left. It was
and he's young.
good.
He's only like 23 or something like that. So he's got a whole decade ahead of him.
Cowboys have a good one, man.
Yeah, they do. As long as we'll talk about that later. Got my issues with the Cowboys this year.
I was actually really interested to see the interchange bench for the Queenslanders. I think it's a pretty poor bench.
I think they could be doing a bit better.
Yeah.
Look, I think Lukey should probably be in there.
I agree.
He's
100%.
I know he's young, but I actually generally do believe that Harry Grant's fine. You don't move.
He should be
Harry
starting
Grant,
if anything.
but not really packing a punch in terms of size on the bench. Like, yes, all right, you got the others, which are pretty decent, but Kurt Capewell is not really a big player. He's more like of a second row.
Yeah.
That's the way I see him, like personally, when I'm watching the game, which could probably be an issue coming up against like Olakawadu and Lenu. But you never know. The way that they're playing and they're rotating these players, the game's changed, and I think that's probably a part of why they're going maybe for... Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think I find it interesting that in game one he had Cobbo on the bench as cover, and now he doesn't have anyone on the bench to cover, which I think is why would you go away from that? I thought it was a masterstroke to do, and I thought the Blues needed to do that as well, and they should have had Burton on the bench for game one, and then he's sort of gone away from that, and not only that, like I don't see Capewell or Kovusi playing in the centres if something happens.
But Capewell did play in the centres only a couple of years ago. At the Warriors, I'm pretty sure it was the Warriors.
Capewell's at the Broncos.
Not
Panthers.
Yeah. He did play centers at the Panthers. He only moved into the second row over the last couple of years. So worst case scenario is it's probably, I don't know. It's been a while since he's played there.
And he's lost the pace of speed. Even at the Warriors, you can tell he's lost the pace of speed. So if you have a Crichton or a Latrell running at him, if something happens and he's forced to go into the centers, like that'll be like what happened to Matt Eisenhuth against for the Dragons against the Bulldogs. They just destroyed him down there.
He's not a center. Like he doesn't have the speed. Doesn't have the agility.
That's what I mean.
But look, I think they could make it work. Hoping there's no heads being taken off this time.
Oh man!
But you've always got the hammer to go straight back into fullback, which that's one the Cowboys let go. Every time I watch him, a part of me just dies on the inside that we let him go.
But I mean, if I was to ask you then, for as a Cowboys supporter, Drinkwater or Hammer?
Look, I think both should be in the team. Maybe Drinkwater, move him into like the halves alongside Dearden and leave Hammer in the back. And I think that's one of the reasons why he left is that he wanted to play at fullback. He wanted to stay there. But Hammer's he's a powerhouse. Like the way that he creates opportunities, the way that he backs up and he scores tries. Like it gives me flashbacks to Matt Bowen.
Oh my God.
The way that Matty Bowen used to play, he gives me flashbacks, and I love. That's really the reason why I followed the Cowboys was in 2004. I've been watching footy since I was 4, but in 2004 when I watched Matt Bowen, Ty Singh, and Ty Williams and Matt Singh play, like he reminds me of their style of play, and just to see him explode, I'm like, it's one that we let go. But obviously you can't keep him more. It's similar to the Dogs with Thurston. You let go of Thurston, and obviously it's probably not at the same level as Thurston, but yeah,
he has the potential to get there.
Yeah, he can, and he's a fullback though. So
who reminds me of, and that try he scored recently against the Sharks. Was it against the Sharks that he scored?
Last week.
Yeah. Do you know who that reminds me of? Like, and I could not believe it. Ben Barber. Bro, just the way he was able to swivel and run and jink himself out of the positions. I was like, this is Ben Barber. Like,
Ben Barber carried the Bulldogs.
Bro, he took us to the grand finals. He took us to the grand finals.
It's a fall from grace because he was like the things that he would do on the field. Like he was like one of those players.
He was once in a generation fullback.
Fullback, and I can't like where he was and where he is now, it's like it's actually heartbreaking that he got to this point.
It is.
Because we watched the grand finals together, and it's like Ben Barber was the player that he'd have the ball, nothing would be happening, and then something's happening, and you're like, what just happened?
Oh my god! And actually, if you recall, he was supposed to come back to the Cowboys before he had his incident, and then they tore up his contract.
Yeah, and then I think he went into soccer or something like that, some odd sport change,
and
then they cancelled his contract. So,
I think it's it's such a shame what happened to Barber, and he'll always be one that got away but he had his demons as well. But anyway, hopefully one day we can get Barber on the podcast and have a chat to him. I think that'd be great just to hear what he has to say. All right, so give me your predictions. First try scorer to score.
What in the State of Origin?
Yeah, game 2.
I reckon Hammer.
Yeah,
Hammer. First try scorer is going to be Hammer. I personally think it's going to be Hammer. I don't think there's going to be much in this game though. I personally think that as long as nobody's getting sent off, it's going to be a close one. Like it's going to be maybe like within 10 points.
Really?
Yeah, I do believe like this time. I think New South Wales does have a stronger side, especially with the inclusion of Latrell Mitchell. Nico Hines had a shocker. In game 1, couldn't really do much. I know there's 12 players, but still a good halfback. And again, there's a number of reasons to why they're not firming on the day.
100%.
And I think he's a great player, but we'll see how he goes. I think if Luai and Mitchell tee up really well, and Mitchell and Latrell fires up, I think New South Wales might take it but on the day, anything can happen. So I think it's going to be less than 10 points. I do truly believe it's going to be less than 10 points.
So for me, my first try scorer is going to be Zach Lomax. I reckon it's going to be Zach Lomax.
Not a bad one, actually.
And I actually think that the Blues are going to win 13 plus.
Oh, you think it's going to be a thrashing?
Well, here's the thing, right? I actually think that if you look at the fact that we were versing 13 versus 12, if we were 13 on 13, I actually think we had Queensland number, even with Hines.
Yeah.
That's genuinely what I believe. I reckon we had Queensland's number easily, and Queensland looked much, much better than they actually were because it was 12 players. But if you look at the inclusion of Latrell, you look at the form that someone like Crichton's in, the form that someone like Lomax is in, the kicking game that Mitchell Moses has, knowing that Lomax is going to the Eels next year, I think they're going to build a combo there.
Yeah.
And then you look at our back line, we've got Martin, Crichton, and Murray. Then on the bench, we've got Yo, Olakawatu, Spencer Leniu, and Connor Watson. I just think that the attack that we have is just going to be far too much for the Queenslanders, and I do think that they are vulnerable in defence. I genuinely believe Queensland is vulnerable in defence, and the only problems that we had in game 1 is that I found our kicks by Hines and even Luai just weren't up to it because we only had 12 players. But if we had 13, I honestly think Queensland wouldn't have stood a chance in game 1. Even with the crappy decisions that Madge made for game 1, I still think we would have had him. Honestly, and if Suoli was there, he's all class, he's all speed, he's all strength. So I actually think that it'll be a big Blues win. And look, history's on my side. We usually do very, very well in the second game, and then shed ourselves in Suncorp. But
and look, it is a neutral ground. It's in Melbourne.
It's going to be mainly
I might actually try to go down and watch the game in Melbourne. It would be good at the MCG, which I think will. But like,
is that Marvel Stadium now?
No, it's MCG. Actually, so Marvel's like a whole different stadium. I think down in the Docklands. It's like it's completely different.
Oh, right.
And then Amy Park is different to Marvel Stadium. So there's like
I can't believe I thought MCG. No, what am I thinking? Of course, it's not the same.
No, not the same. No, you're probably thinking Amy Park and Marvel because I
know they're different.
They're not far from each other. They're all like within the city. Like they've got some pretty decent stadiums down in Melbourne.
Bro, Melbourne will be such a good game to watch, and the MCG. Honestly, I just think it'll be a good game. Good game.
100,000 people. Is it sold out though? I don't think it's sold out.
Not yet, but they'll start ramping up the marketing, and it'll get sold out very, very soon.
1 week to go. So.
And it's going to be a big game. I think that the teams chosen are going to. It's going to be very, very. Bro, you can never beat State of Origin. Like it's just such.
And you know what? Like I personally think that this is probably the most excited I've been in years for like the emerging State of Origin teams.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like finally we're starting to get that. Newer names coming through, but names that are like really growing into becoming superstars. Because I felt like for a while in the NRL, we weren't really getting like the big guns, the big names, the Jonathan Thurstons and the Billy Slaters and all that. Whereas now it's like, well, okay, now we've got all these young players coming through the ranks, and I think it's exciting times with NRL. Like, when you look at the Raiders halves, and you look at the Tigers halves, it's like, whoa, this is it. We're finally getting a new generation.
It's the new era.
And I think that's exciting. I think if the NRL I personally think the game's gone a bit backwards in terms of the quality. That's just me personally, because of all the rule changes and the interpretations around the rules. But for a while, I feel like we weren't getting that new generation, whereas now it's like, okay, the new generation's here.
Starting to show, yeah.
How is the NRL going to ensure that they keep this new generation and they're going to improve the quality of the game?
You mentioned that the Tigers, like, I reckon Lockie Galvin could be in a Blues jersey, like, in a few years.
Yeah.
Bro, even like you look at someone like Kiraz for the Bulldogs, the bloke averages like 200 meters a game,
Yeah.
but he's got like a million tackle breaks, all these line breaks. Like, he just thinks of like, even in, you look at the Queenslanders, like KP's not even in the team.
Yeah.
Tino's like 24 years old. He's not in the team.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, to be honest, and that's why I hope it's a good game for game 2.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I hope the Blues absolutely destroy them.
We'll see that one.
All right, so that's the Origin talk. Now, what we want to do is we want to get into a little bit of a season review. We're going to start with the Bulldogs, then we'll move on to the Cowboys, and then after the Cowboys, we'll just give like a 1-minute brief sort of review on some of the other teams. But what I would like you guys to do if you're watching is please just give us a thumbs up. Share the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us with with being in the algorithm and just sort of pumping us up. So I really appreciate all your support. Now, let's get into some of this review, because I'm really interested. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are about the Bulldogs as a neutral observer.
Yeah. Look, I've growing up, I've had my personal vendetta against the Dogs because of you, obviously being one of the people. It's fun though. It's nice. That's why you love the footy, right? The banter and all that sort of stuff. But look, I think the Dogs have finally got something. It's been a while. It's been a long time, like since the Dogs had anything, and it's evident in every supporter you talk to. They're like, when are we going to change? Like when is this happening? And it's finally coming back. I live in Belmore, so when the Dogs win,
you hear about it.
I hear about it, and it's nice. Like, obviously, I don't support the Dogs, but I love seeing the passion come through from the supporters, and I think the Dogs have one of the best, like, in terms of passionate supporters. This year, I think the Dogs have finally started to make that change. They've won more games this year than they have. It's only halfway.
In 15 rounds, we won more games than the whole year last year.
And obviously last year there were injuries. Don't get me wrong, there were injuries and all these sort of things happen. And Serraldo's sort of, trying to put it all together. But it's finally clicking, and it's nice to see that the team is coming together again. And I think they will make the 8 this year. I think they will make. They've got a team to make the 8, and as long as they stay fit and they stay healthy, and I think if the team stays around, I maybe one more addition to the team. I think that they're going to go pretty well in the next few years. Yeah. Just hope they don't become like a Parramatta Eels and a Brad Arthur, where they make it to the finals and they lose, and then they sign the coach for another 5 years, and then they sack him after a year. Yeah, look, the Eels are another one, because I'm like, listen, Brad Arthur, I don't think is a bad coach.
Not at all.
He's a great coach.
Yeah.
But I think it gets to a point where you need to move on.
Yeah.
Like
agreed.
you need to you get so bogged down in doing things a certain way that if you don't change it, it doesn't change. And
That's right.
he had to leave the Eels. That's what I think. I think he had to leave the Eels.
For both of their sake, for the Eels' sake and for Brad Arthur's sake, they had to leave. And to be honest, I think Brad Arthur was too good of a person for the Eels. He was too good of a coach.
So? Yeah.
Bro, he was so nice. Like, after he left, he was so grateful. He wasn't upset. He wasn't pissed off. He was just like, thank you for the
And
opportunity.
wasn't it on his birthday or something?
Yeah, it was something like
something
the day before his birthday. It was just, typical Eels rubbish. And look, man, last week on the podcast, after we gave him that absolute hiding, and we had 3 players injured, and we still beat them in the last few minutes. We said on this podcast that we're supporting the Eels against the Roosters because it benefits us.
Yeah.
And what do? They go out and get smashed. I was just like, come on, man. Even when we supported you guys, you guys couldn't do it. And actually, some of their supporters are absolutely livid at the moment. They're very, very upset with the way the directions the club is going, and they're talking. It's all about money, and then
look who's at the coach. Who's the coach? Who's in the coach role?
Trent Barrett,
they
right?
put Trent Barrett, and look, Trent Barrett's not a head coach
At all.
Could he get there? I'm not sure. I don't know, but he's never performed as a head coach. He's a great assistant coach. He did really well at Penrith. He did extremely well there. But is that him or was that Cleary? Like there's a lot of questions, and they've obviously got him in that space, and that's probably why they won the first time. But it's just that new coach experience where They win one, and then it just falls apart again. I think there's a lot of building that needs to happen within the Eels for them to get to where they are. It's a long journey. Like with the Dogs, the reason why the Dogs are here isn't because of, it's happened overnight. I think as just society as a whole, we just see the overnight success.
Yeah, we want the overnight success.
But the reality is, it's never an overnight success. It takes a long time to build that culture.
Blood,
and
sweat,
I think
tears, bro.
the Dogs are there. I think they will make the 8. Probably won't go deep into the finals, but you build on that in 2025, and then you build on that in 2026. You got to look at that long-term vision. So. Yeah.
Shout out to Jamie Teasdale. He's been here since the beginning. The Dogs are back, baby. Omar Hayek. Trent Barrett shouldn't be allowed to finish the season. Bro, I don't think Trent Barrett should be allowed near a freaking locker room. That's the way I look at it. I think that some of the decisions that Barrett's made at the Bulldogs, at the Manly, and then now at the Eels, I just think that, bro, honestly, I just don't think his head's where it should be. Genuinely, I just don't think he's a proper first grade coach. And I think the Eels fans know it. I've been speaking to a few Eels fans, and they're like, just keep Barrett away. Just keep Barrett away. Like, it's, I just don't think he has I don't know if it's the personality or the attitude or like the drive. Like, you look at Seraldo, and when Seraldo talks about the team, he's always like, there's always that air of, I'm protecting my team, but we're going to do this together. But I remember when Trent Barrett was our coach, like, there were times where in the press conference he'll say, "Oh, this team can't score more than this amount of points, so we can't let in more than this amount of points." I'm just like, that's such a defeatist mentality to have. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're already, limiting your team and what they can do in attack, like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah. And then Mick Potter takes over, and 2 weeks later we score 40 points. I'm just like, bro, what were you talking about? The Dogs can score. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things.
Look, coaching isn't just about running some drills.
100%.
And honestly, it's not only about the footy. I think a lot of people overlook the fact that coaching, leadership isn't just about, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is our strategy. This is how we're going to play a game. This is how we're going to defend. Coaching is a lot deeper than that. Coaching is about understanding your players. A lot of psychology behind coaching. If there's no trust in the coach, if there's no trust in the leadership, if you're not allowing players to build bonds and trust each other, it shows on the field. So, like, a lot of players on the field, if they're not sort of backing each other and saying, like, well, I trust that player to make that tackle, maybe it's a culture issue at head office. 100%. So if I'm a player and I'm hearing the coach telling the media, we can't score more than this, so we can't let it in. That tells me a lot about what the coach thinks about me. And as a player, I'll probably lose a lot of respect for that coach and think, well, that's not a coach that I want to play with. I don't care what anyone says. Like, people are like, oh, just shut up, you get paid, play the game. Yeah. Well, then you don't understand human nature. You don't understand the way that humans work with
and
motivation.
your team doesn't win premierships
if that's your mentality, like, shut up and play, then your team's never going to want to win a premiership.
Yeah.
A coach needs to show resilience, leadership. He needs to hold it together for his team. And it's only when the coach provides that, the support to his team and the trust in that they will get there, that's when they'll reciprocate that loyalty and that trust towards that
and
coach.
The effort and commitment.
And
like, it's all about man management. Like, you look at like, my perfect example for this is always the Rabbitohs. Like, I look at what Wayne Bennett was able to do with that team. He took them to a grand final. Arguably, they have a better team now than they did in 2021 when they made 2021 when they made the grand final. Jason Demetrio couldn't get him to perform. And for me, that shows it's all about man management. It's all about how you are able to interact with your team. And it's also about actually setting boundaries that your team's going to be able to listen to, right? Because you look at Wayne Bennett, everywhere he goes, he seems to have some level of success. Yeah. Right? There's got to be something to it about the way, because everyone that plays under Wayne Bennett wants to play under him again. Yeah. Everybody looks forward to it.
Marshall King, he's following him down to the Rabbitohs.
No, Marshall King just re-signed.
Sorry, not Marshall King. There was a player from the Dolphins that is, because Wayne Bennett signed with the Rabbits.
You're talking about Ewan Aitken.
Sorry, Ewan Aitken. So one of the was that Ewan Aitken? I'm pretty sure it was Marshall King. Anyways, he
just re-signed with the Dolphins. Marshall King.
Yeah, so one of them, because the Dolphins just signed someone else too. There's so many changes happening.
Tavita Pangai?
No, I'm not sure what's happening there, to be honest. But you see him following the player, the coach, because like, that's a coach that I want to play under, because that coach is going to be able to help me get the best out of myself.
100%.
That's
both off and on the field.
Exactly.
Both, not just on the field.
And like, people are like, oh, but it's not the coach, it's you. It's like, well, again, the coach, and that, I think that comes down to being a bit humble, knowing that I can't, like, as a player, as an elite player, just because you're a great player and you're number one in the league, it doesn't mean that you don't need mentoring.
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't, like, arrogance is what gets in the way of progress. It's only when a player has that perspective of, no, I can always improve my game, whether it's by an inch, then that's when you actually become better at what you do. And I think, like you said, Wayne Bennett, wherever you go, you can't deny the fact that Wayne Bennett is one of the best coaches to ever coach in the NRL. And it shows in everything that he does.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And like, I know I'm harping on a little bit about Serraldo, but I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of digging into what he's doing. And I've watched almost every single press conference, every single media show, like by any Bulldogs player. And the one thing that they talk about is the connection that Serraldo has built between the team.
Yeah.
And the trust that he's built between each other. And that for me shows last year we had none of that. There was no commitment, there was no connection, there was no, like, now every time, like, Stephen Crichton won 3 premierships at the Panthers, and he said that this Bulldogs team, he's never been part of a more connected team than the Bulldogs team at the moment. That for me shows a lot, and that's why we're winning, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the biggest pack. Like, honestly, you look at our props and you think, who the hell are they?
Yeah.
You know?
And you don't need, I don't think you need the biggest pack anymore.
You don't.
Because
Absolutely.
the game has changed. And I have to give it to the Dogs. They've stuck with it.
Yeah.
A lot of the young players have stayed around, and I think they see what Serraldo is building at the Dogs. And as long as Serraldo continues to do what he's doing there, and he builds that trust and that commitment from the players, and he puts his trust in them, knowing, hey, look, you've got the capability to do this. All I'm doing as a coach is I'm going to be guiding you and steering you in the right direction. But you're doing this. Yeah. It's in you've got the capability. I think the Dogs are going to go a long way as long as they stay healthy.
As long as we don't get too many injuries. Yeah. Like you know, one of the ones I find interesting at the Dogs is Kobe Sexton. You know, he didn't play for 12 rounds or whatever it was. Serraldo says, okay, I want you to come in and control our attack. He comes in, and on the trot, we've got the best attacking average for the Bulldogs have had in like 15 years with him at number 7. We're scoring an average of 33 points a game with him at 7. And you think to yourself, like, if you're Toby Sexton, you've come from the Gold Coast, you're told you're going to be 7, and then they go and buy Drew Hutchison, and then they leave you out for 12 weeks, and you think to yourself, I'm not going to make it back there. You know what I mean? I was gypped. I'm going to look for a way out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But somehow, Serraldo's brought him in, shown him that he's going to be a central part of the attack, and now Sexton is performing at a level that everyone's known Sexton can perform at.
Yeah.
And not only that, it feels like he's unlocking Burton. Like, you look at the way Burton played, for example, against the Eels. People think, he wasn't that great. Bro, honestly, sometimes I think people watch the footy like that.
Yeah.
I look at people and say, I don't know what game you're watching. Like, what the hell are you watching? Kickout has been the best second row in the game until he got injured. I don't care what anyone says. He was the best second row. Better than Fafita, better than Crichton, better than anyone. Best second row in the game. And then you ask people and you say, why is Kickout playing so well? Is it just simply that he's running hard?
Nah, it's not that simple.
You look at Burton, and it's literally been his thing since game 1 is I'm going to get the ball early to kick out. I'm going to jump out of dummy half, get the ball to kick out. I'm going to call the ball and get it to kick out. I'm going to unlock kick out. That's all he's been doing. And you look at it and you think, if there was another 6 that maybe couldn't pass, that couldn't have as crisp a pass, or wasn't as quick, or wasn't identifying that there was some gap there and I'm going to get the ball to kick out, you wouldn't have those opportunities. Like, so in my mid-year season review, one of the questions that I have is standout player. Yeah. Right? And I know so many people are going to disagree with me, but I actually think our standout player, other than Stephen Crichton, who is the captain, who I think is just a level above everyone. He's right up there. It's Matt Burton. I think Matt Burton has been the standout player for the Bulldogs.
I think so too. And that's why I was telling you he should be in the house.
I agree with you.
That's why I was telling you earlier, Matt Burton, I think, should have been there in game 1. And I think he should be there in game 2 as well.
How do you go from 18th man to not being in the 20?
At all. Like, he should be in there. Like, people underestimate how good Burton has come out over the last couple of years. Bro. He was great. Don't get me wrong. He was great at the Panthers when he was playing in the centres. And, expecting him to come back straight into the 5'8" and be this polished player was unreasonable. Yeah. So, yes. And the thing is, he wasn't horrible. He was rusty. Yeah. That's what you can... And it was coming... But... That's okay. What do you want him to become, like a superstar overnight?
And then don't forget, over the last 3 years that he's been at the Dogs, his halves partners haven't been consistent.
Yeah.
He's had, at one point, Carl Flanagan. He's had, Drew Hutchison. He had Jake Avrila last year. Then he was at 7 last year with whoever it was at 6. And then the year before that, I don't even remember who we had at 6 and 7.
Yeah.
So it's been so inconsistent that I don't think Burton's had the opportunity to shine. Come this year, the whole team's pumping, and his kicking game's been good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we outkicked the Eels. Like, for a minute, I want you to think about this. They've got Dylan Brown and Mitchell Moses.
Yeah.
We outkicked the Eels. Like, that's not an easy feat.
Yeah.
We outkicked the Eels. We outkicked the Knights.
Yeah.
Right? We outkicked the Dragons. They've got Ben Hunt, who's one of the most experienced sevens in the game.
Yeah.
All right? So,
those bombs, but his bombs give
he
nightmares to everyone.
finally pulled them out against the Eels, and they caused them so much havoc.
When I was watching that, I'm like, man, if I was Gutho or whatever it is, I'd be looking at that like, another one.
I'm out.
Another one. Like, I can't keep doing this because they float.
Bro, I was at
They
that game.
spend time in there.
I was at that game, and I was like, where'd the ball go? I
Like,
couldn't
they go
find the
up
ball.
so high. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna go get a drink. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And then it's still up in the air. That's how good his kicking game was. So,
And look, Gutho did a good job to take most of them, but I reckon against most fullbacks, they wouldn't be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
Even someone like Reece Walsh, can you imagine putting that up to... I reckon Reece Walsh would buckle under that.
Reece Walsh.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
If you had him there in Origin, putting up those bombs, how much havoc do you think they'll
It
cause?
create a lot of problems. It would definitely create, and I think that's why he's an emission. Like he should be in that. He should be in there
Without a doubt.
Like
So what do you guys think? Do you think that Matt Burton has been the stand-up player for the Bulldogs? Because honestly, I think from where I'm sitting, there needs to be credit where it's due. Look, I was also thinking potentially it could have been someone like Reid Marnie. I think Reid Marnie's had so far. I think he's in career best form. I know he had a really good 2022, but this year, bro, his tackling efficiency has gone up through the roof. He's made the most tackles in the competition by honestly, I think about 100 tackles. He's absolutely killing it. So I think it's crazy. And Jamie Teasdale's just said Burton's got bigger bombs than the military. That's a great call. Omar Hayek has asked, do you guys reckon Ciraldo is the reason Burton does less bombs, or is it his own decision? That's a good question. I actually think that it's a bit of both. I think that maybe Ciraldo's asked Burton to focus on being a little bit more precise with his long kicking game, being a little bit more controlled, and not always reverting to that bomb, because then it can get boring, or not, but it can get stagnant and people start figuring it out.
Yeah.
But it's more about, I think, Burton just understanding when is the right time to pull it out, and I thought he did that really well against the Eels.
Yeah,
like,
he caused havoc.
There were times where we weren't really getting out of our half, or we were just on their 50-meter line, and he'd put them up. And what it does, because they're so high, it gives the defensive line a couple of extra seconds to actually get in the face of the Eels. Yeah. And I realized that's what was giving us that defensive momentum to keep the Eels in their own half. Yeah. And it's one of those things that I reckon Burton should definitely use more often, but just not too much. You don't want him to be using it too often. Is sort of what I would say.
Can I just add, like, one player I think doesn't get a rap enough is Josh Curran. Is that his name?
Yeah.
He's
a freak.
I actually love watching him play.
Yeah,
he's one of those players that just puts his head down. Like, he's a bit of like a dark horse, if you want to call it that.
100%.
Like I said, the Dogs are playing really well, and I actually find them very, very impressive this year in what they're doing. But I feel like Josh he's one of those players that does a lot of work that goes without credit.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Stephen Crichton and Burton and the big names. It's like, but he's one of those players that comes off the bench or whatever it is, and he does some hard work, the tackling, the running, and I think he was for the Warriors, wasn't he?
He was for the Warriors.
I remember him even at the Warriors.
He was great at the Warriors.
So much work, and so I think
But do you know what's crazy about Curran is he came over as a second rower.
Yeah,
he's playing in the middle, right? He makes about 40 tackles a game and runs for 160 meters, and he's not a prop. He didn't come across as a prop.
He's not a prop.
At times he is our only genuine big boy on the bench. You've got Curtis Moran, who's 5'0", right? He runs hard, but he's not a big body.
Yeah.
Curran is like the only prop we have on the bench, and he's not even supposed to be a prop. Yeah. And I remember against that Knights game in the second half, bro, he on his own, I felt, owned the whole Knights forward pack. Leo Thompson, the Saifides, who else do they have? All their he just on his own, he just outran them, and it was just like, bro, wow. And he loves it. Like, you can see the guy's happy. And he was talking about when when the Knights weren't able to score against the Dogs, even though we had two different sim bins. And he was talking about this thing called hungry dogs, and I mentioned it on the podcast before. And he said when someone goes off, we don't say, oh shit, someone's gone off. We embrace it. We say hungry dogs, and it's something that we're training for, to be hungry dogs.
But
so
you
there's
see
always
that mentality though.
The mentality is nuts.
It does a lot.
Wallah, it does a lot.
People underestimate the power of shifting your mentality from oh, we've lost a player and oh, we're down and like, you know, poor us, to no, we're gonna embrace this adversity and we're gonna bind together for the next 10 minutes. Yeah, it's gonna take a lot out of us, but if we do this, yes, it's gonna take a lot of energy out of us. But what you'll find is that when you hold out and you provide that defense, it actually re-energizes you. Like,
and it breaks the other team.
It breaks the other team mentally. You see them, they go for that 2 point.
Yeah.
you know when they go for the 2 points after they've been try to get away through. That's a win. That's
a massive win. It's a definitely psychological
huge win,
right? 100%. So what do you guys think? Give me your comments down below. There's 25 people, and I want to see 25 different opinions on who you guys think has been the standout player for the Bulldogs. Let me know in the comments below, and also make sure you give this a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe if you are watching for the first time. Now, very quickly, just want to talk about just a couple of things of the season so far. The Bulldogs have only won 7 games in all of 2023. We've already won 27 games in 2024, and we're averaging 22 points a game this season. I don't remember the last time we were averaging at the attack that high.
Yeah,
our defense is the best defense in the competition.
I was reading the other day. It's one of the best. Like, it is the best defense in the season.
If you look at the ladder, we're actually the best. But the argument could be made is that Panthers have played one more game than us, so therefore they actually have better defense than we do. But
on average, though.
But just look at the ladder. I go back based off the ladder. Based on the ladder, we have the best defense. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to get into the technicalities. We have the best defense.
Yeah.
We're the only team to not have conceded more than 30 points a game this season. The only team.
Wow.
The only team not to concede more than 30 points a game, or in any game. We're undefeated at home this season. I believe we are the only team undefeated at home this season. Right? We've won 3 games in a row for the first time since 2019.
Yeah, I was reading that. I'm like, oh, what's a tough run for the Dogs, man. First time since 2019.
Bro, it's a very, very tough run.
Years.
But, bro, it's like, as a fan, it's like, you know what? Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on. And actually, the biggest turnaround, this is the biggest team turnaround. I was trying to find a little bit more data on this. I couldn't figure it out, but it's the biggest turnaround since the Cowboys of 2022. Yeah. If you remember, from 2021 to 2022, the Cowboys, Todd Payton did miracles with them.
Yeah. Got
them into the top 4, went 1 game away from the grand final. Amazing, right? The other time that the only other time a team has turned it around so significantly was actually the Bulldogs, believe it or not, from 2008 to 2009.
Yeah.
In 2008, we came last. We got the spoon. In 2009, we were 2 points off getting the minor premiership, and we made it to the semi-finals.
That was Ben Barber, wasn't it?
No, that was actually before Ben Barber.
Just before Ben Barber.
That was when we had, if you remember, Ben Hannon, Brett Comorley. I think we still had Frank Pritchard at that time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you remember Kevin Moore was our coach?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was
Ben
a
Barber,
biggest,
I think, came in 2010.
Yeah, he debuted in 2010.
I remember it was roughly around that time.
But he was still... So he came to the Dogs, I think, in 2008. He was playing for the New South Wales Cup. And if you remember the National Youth Competition, the Under-20s, NYC. And he was killing it there, but he hadn't yet made his debut.
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah. And so that 2008, 2009 was one of the biggest. The biggest positive, I think, for me, there's just 2 things that I have to talk about that I think are really showing why we're actually in all these games. Is number 1, commitment. I think that the boys are playing with each other and loving playing with each other. Yeah. And, you know, even we get sin bins, when, you know, calls go against us, when we get injuries, we've never ever put our heads down and said, no, fuck this. Like last year, every time something would go wrong, it's a bit like the Dragons 2024. They just give up.
Yeah.
Honestly, they just give up. They're like, oh, we can't do this anymore. They were soft between the eyes. Yeah. Now it's like, no, we're going to go through. And I think what that comes from genuinely is our fitness. I think we are the fittest, or one of the fittest, if not the fittest team in the competition. I think the only other 2 teams that can claim this fitness are the Storm and the Panthers.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Honestly, because if you look at even the Sharks, like when they're put under pressure, they struggle.
Yeah.
When they put under pressure, they struggle. You look at the Dragons, they perform well in games that they're leading. The minute any pressure is applied to them,
they fall apart.
They drop their lollies, right? That comes down to fitness and being able to make tough decisions on the fly.
Yeah.
And I think they're the 2 things that Serrato has done better than most this season. And I reckon he's a shoe-in honestly, I genuinely reckon he's a shoe in for coach of the year. If we keep going,
if he
he'll
keeps
be coach
going,
of the year, bro.
he definitely will. And look, I think what Seraldo did really well, and because he did spend time at the Panthers, right, with Cleary, was he observed, he took what he can from Cleary, but he didn't try to emulate, like he didn't try to carbon copy Cleary.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this is what he's doing, I'm doing this. He's like, well, these are the things that I've learned. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my own twist into it. And you can see it in his style. Like it's a very different style to Cleary. Like, yes, there's similarities, but I think he's done an incredible job at the Dogs. Like, look, personally, at first I'm like, oh, another one, another Barrett. You know, that's what I thought, because you've been an assistant coach, you've never had a head coaching position.
You come in and shit yourself.
I remember Seraldo playing for the Knights. Like, it wasn't that long ago. When you look at the greater scheme of things, and I was a big doubter about Seraldo. Even though I'm not a Dog supporter, I'm like, it's probably another one. You know,
same. I thought another rebuild after another rebuild. Who is this guy?
But I love the fact that they're starting to bring in some younger coaches.
Me too.
Into the spotlight. Nothing against the older coaches, because we grew up watching them coach, and I think they gave us so much joy in our life
100%.
through their coaching styles. Watching the NRL, like Des Hasler, Craig Bellamy, Wayne Bennett, all the coaches that have been there. But I think it's time now where we get the younger generation come through. And the style is going to change as well. So, and I think Seraldo is probably a nice reflection of
100%.
potentially the new generation of coaches that will be coming through. And look, if the Dogs hold on to him and they don't let go of him, and the board or the management don't do anything to sour the taste of the players' mouths, because sometimes that does happen when management get involved, just generally in any workplace, and that's what it is, right? Let Seraldo do what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's if I'm going to give advice. I'm not a CEO, whatever it is, but let's be honest. Let him do what he's doing. Don't throw that away, because you're going to throw something away that's extremely valuable here that you can't buy. You can't put a price on this.
100%.
You cannot buy this.
And you know what? Like, what I find very interesting was he stuck to his guns from last year. Like last year, he could have said, "This didn't work. Let's try something different." But he's like, "Nah. I believe in my processes. I believe in my systems. I'm going to stick to them, and I'm going to get people who believe in them. I'm going to make them believe in it, and let's see how we go." And he's stuck to it, and it's working.
Because you have to give it time. You can't say like, "Oh, it didn't work in the first 2-3 months." It's like, all right, it didn't work in the first year, but we can see glimpses of what can work. So why don't we just take what didn't work last year, put that aside, and replace it with a few things? And I think. The Dogs, I reckon, will finish in the 8. I'm not sure if they're going to finish in the 4. Yet, obviously, anything can happen over the next few months, but definitely in the 8. I don't see him dropping out of the 8.
100%.
They're not the Cowboys.
Adele Klink says, all coaches need to be more like Ricky Stewart. And you know what, brother? I agree with you. Ricky Stewart is the most entertaining coach in the competition. The bloke does not give a shit. And on that, actually, someone asked just a little bit earlier, Moot FM has asked, is TPJ the definition of a weak gutted dog?
Look, you're talking about Tavita, yeah?
Yeah.
I think, and look, I know he was on good money and all that sort of stuff, but a lot of people don't understand that when someone's heart is not in the game, and they could potentially be not in the right place, I think he did the right thing.
Yeah, 100%.
I personally think that he said, because he didn't get paid, did he?
Like he said to the team, he walked away. He said, I don't want anything.
I can't do it. And if someone can't do it, respect that decision. Like I know people have their experiences and they've left the sour taste in their mouth, but he went to boxing. It seems like boxing's probably not going to be the thing for him. I don't know what he's going to do. He's gone to the Dolphins. People have their own opinions about it, but good on him. You try things, you change. Maybe he goes to the Dolphins and thinks to himself, maybe I'm still not ready to come back. Because that could happen. He
also could come in and absolutely tear shit up and learn that, I got to be a bit more humble. Got to just learn from... Yeah. And look, again, we're talking about Wayne Bennett. If anyone can get out of him, it's Wayne Bennett.
Oh, he's the
do you know what I mean?
Super coach. Like,
if anyone can get out of him, it's Wayne Bennett.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. Look, I'm happy with him doing what he did. As a dog supporter, it really means nothing to me.
Does it really matter though? Like when you look at the dog side now.
That's what I'm saying.
Does it stop focusing on what happened and start looking at what you have
and
100%. What you're building? Because it could be that Tavita could have stayed.
And the Dogs wanted him to stay.
And they probably won't stay.
They did.
The issue is, if you keep a player that doesn't want to be there from the bottom of their heart and they're going through things, what happens is that could impact and influence the way that other players feel, because they're like,
100%.
well, we don't want to be around this player that doesn't want to be here, and that could ruin the relationship and the culture and the vibe around
One
the
bad
club.
apple,
So,
bro.
look, good on him, and I think the Dogs made the right decision. Look, we want you to stay, we'll support you, but if you think it's the best choice, like for you and your family,
Allah, man.
then do what you need to do.
100%.
And it seemed like there was no blood on the way out,
Yeah.
like bad blood. I'm not sure
There
if
wasn't.
there wasn't. It
No, it
seemed
was-
like it wasn't. It was done in a very civil
The
way.
club was very amicable. Tavita was very, very honest with the club, and the club was very honest with Tavita, and we actually went really, really, really amicably from what I've been told from inside the club, and everyone was happy, and the club holds no resentment to Tavita and actually want him to do well. So, and look, we got over Tavita, as Omar Haig saying, we got over Tavita very, very quickly, and I think we also got over someone like Averillo very quickly, and we got over.
He's a good player.
But I mean, he's gone to the Dolphins, and he hasn't stood out like we thought he would. But we aren't suffering without him.
Because
You know what I mean?
because the team doesn't revolve around the player.
100%.
And that's a good team. When a team doesn't revolve around a single player to perform,
Yeah.
that's what you want. You don't want a team that's so dependent on one player.
100%.
Look at the Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers. Cleary is one of the best halves. Like he's
Ever.
young. Like honestly, the guy's already put his name up there. I don't like him not because I don't like him as a person. I don't like him because he's so good.
Yeah, bro, he's fantastic.
He pisses me off.
He's fantastic.
He pisses me off at how good he is, and like when you're versing them, like you can't get over how good he's young.
Bro, he'll kick you to death. Like honestly, when we versed the Panthers, he was the difference. I thought we were neck and neck, and then you can tell that it was absolutely Nathan Cleary's kicking game that stuffed us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I reckon we were in with a chance against.
But the reason why I mentioned Cleary is because even when you pull Cleary out of the team, they're still a good team.
Fantastic, bro.
He's like you said, one of the best halves to play the game. You know what? Yeah, you can't no one can say no. The guy's already won 3 premierships.
He won that one single-handedly.
Single-handedly, he brought the Panthers
Yeah.
back into it. But even without him, they're a good team. They're a quality team.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Yes, you want superstars. You want players they're going to make the difference. They're going to win games for you. But at the same time, guess what? You're not going to have every player healthy, are you?
No,
Things happen. People get injured. And what you want is a solid foundation for the team to continue playing. Yeah, they lost Kickow. They lost Crichton.
Yeah.
Cleary's injured. And look at them. They're a phenomenal team. So,
And I still think they're going to get the 4-peat.
yeah, look, there's a big. We'll talk about who can potentially win because there's only a number of teams that I think could genuinely compete for it for the premiership. But great team.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, for the Bulldogs, I think what needs to. I was trying to figure out who or what needs to improve. I really don't know. Like my biggest thing was what we need to do is we need to improve our kicking, like our goal kicking. I think that's the biggest letdown for us. If we improve our goal, our goal kicking, we've lost 5 games by 4 points or 6 points or less.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are because we didn't kick 2 goals.
Yeah.
Like if we improve our goal kicking, we're automatically in the top 4.
And look, it could be the player himself that kicks that they have to improve, or they find another goal kicker. Like it's. And look, you're right. Goal kicking is such a vital part of the game, isn't it? Like those 2 points, they add up.
Yeah.
They add up.
100%.
And if you're losing games by less than 6 points, and they're because of the kicks, something needs to change.
Rabbitohs by 4, Raiders by 4, Storm by 2. Who else? Panthers by 6. Like we're losing, really winnable games just because of our kicking. But but ultimately, I still think it's been such a good year. I don't know who I don't have anyone to criticize. Like I want to say, Salmon needs to improve, but no, he's played his role perfectly for us. He's made 40, 50 tackles a game, been in position where he needs to be. So, I can't even say someone that needs to improve. I just think it's the kicking. My predicted finish as well, to be really honest with you, I've written 5th only because if I say 4th, everyone's going to be like, oh, you're biased, you're this, you're that. I think of the top 8, there's only 1 or 2 teams that we would struggle to beat.
And that's probably the Storms and the Panthers.
Storm and the Panthers. That's it.
And I personally think they're the only 2 teams that could potentially win the premiership again this year. Like, I know I'm being a bit pessimistic and all that sort of stuff, but I just don't feel like the other teams have the power to win it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's going to be like this always, but I feel like over the last few years, it's been feeling like very Premier League-ish, where it's like
a little bit.
you've got your top 2 teams or top
Yeah.
3 teams that are really in it. Whereas a few years before that, it was a lot closer. There was a lot more competition, I think. But I think that will change.
But on competition, having said that, look, I agree with you that it's the 2 teams like the Melbourne and the Panthers are standing out. But then you also think it's great competition that the next 10, anyone other than Eels, Rabbitohs, Tigers, and Titans can make the 8. Literally any team
Can make the 8.
other than those 4. So out of the 17, 13 or 14 of the teams could potentially be in the top 8.
Yeah.
I think that's great competition. But it's probably too evenly spread out, I think, in certain instances.
Yeah, but obviously you want that competition, but you want that competition to compete for the premiership.
For the top,
'Cause
yeah.
That's where I think it matters most.
Yeah.
We love a good comp. We love from all the way from 3rd to 14th or 13th, anyone can make the 8.
Yeah.
But it's good to watch week in, week out. Like for a game, amazing.
Yeah.
But in terms of what do we all want? We all want that premiership glory. And I think in a few years, once the younger teams start to really form and they compete, then it's going to be more exciting.
I agree, and I think I look at the Tigers, and people want to death ride the Tigers. But I love Benji as a coach, and I actually think the Tigers of 2024 are at the stage where the Bulldogs were in 2023. I actually think they'll be much, much better in 2024. Benji will be much, much better in 2024.
Yeah.
Shane Richardson will be great as a CEO, and I think they're making the right moves. I genuinely believe that they're making the right moves, and the media loves shitting on the Tigers. I don't know why, but
just recently, didn't they say that Luke Galvin requested a release? And I read another article saying
Lachlan Galvin said no, he didn't, and it's not true. And he didn't walk around.
Yeah.
He didn't walk around saying that. And you know what? I believe the kid. Fuck the media. Everyone just wants. There's so much shit. Excuse the language, but there's just so much shit talk from these dopey journos. Bro, it blows my mind how much rubbish the journos talk.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Reportedly.
Get out of here, bro.
And the reason, obviously, we know why they do it, because it gets clicks, but I don't think they take into consideration the impact that this does have on individuals.
100%.
And it shows how careless they are towards players. 100%. Yeah, all right, they're players. They play sports and they play football and they get paid well, but at the end of the day, they're human.
And he's 18 years old, bro.
He's a kid.
Young kid.
He's still a young kid growing up. So, and we know how the media can play a big role in how whether a player reaches his full potential, or it could also cripple someone,
destroy
them mentally and psychologically.
I actually reckon. I know this is very early to say, but I reckon Lachlan Galvin will stay at the Tigers for a very long time, and I reckon they're going to see success on the back of him.
Yeah.
Honestly, you look at they've had so many injuries. Aiden Caesar comes back in. It was a horrible game, that Titans game. It was a tough game to watch.
Yeah.
But Aiden Caesar, with a little bit of experience, comes back in and has made a huge difference in that team. RP, massive difference. Right, they've got 9 or 10 injuries. 9 or 10 injuries. So obviously they're going to struggle. Like the Dogs last year. We had a horrible injury crisis. But no one cared. Everyone just wanted to talk shit. So I think Benji needs to just stick it tough. And I reckon they'll be great next year.
When your casualty ward is longer than your starting line.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You're complaining. What do you mean you're complaining? Yes, it's just unfortunate that injuries do happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Tigers, look, it's been a rough ride for the Tigers. I think it's been rougher than the Dogs.
Poor soft heroes.
It's been rougher than the Dogs. When was the last time the Tigers made the finals?
It's been a good 14. Did they make it in the late 2010s?
Did they?
I don't remember.
Because I remember I remember reading a stat where the last time they made the finals was in 2010 or something.
Was it?
Like
So
that.
something like 2011.
When was the last time? I know I'm picking on Tigers fans here. The Tigers made the final.
Yeah. Look.
2011.
Yeah.
So the last time was in 2011. They qualified for the 3 final series in 2005, 10, and 11.
And that was, I think 2011 was under Mick Potter, and they still got rid of him because he had an issue with Robbie Farah. Bro, anyway, want to quickly, and look, we will be previewing the Roosters Dogs game. I know that Skelton's been chosen. We're very, very excited to talk about that. But just very, very quickly, we got a Cowboys supporter here. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about the Cowboys, just about reviewing the season. What do you think of the season so far?
I'm frustrated.
Yeah,
I'm extremely frustrated with the Cowboys because the quality of players in that team and a lot of them are young players. For some reason, there's like an on and off switch with the Cowboys. They're very frustrating to watch, but they can also be the most exciting team to watch. It's like when you watch them play, they can be as good as the Tigers for sorry,
as bad as the Tigers.
They can be as bad as the Tigers for a big part, but they can also switch on and be as good as the Panthers.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's in when I'm watching, I see it in like pockets. It's like a switch. The Cowboys can play extremely well, but I think it's been quite disappointing so far. Look, we're not doing too bad. Like when we're looking at the ladder, we're looking at number 10, but I think and we haven't had a bye yet.
Yeah,
this is the first week.
That's very interesting.
So like the very fact that the Cowboys haven't had a bye and they're still fighting for the 8 tells you that they're a good team. But the inconsistency, I think, so far has been the frustrating part to watch around the Cowboys. I think some of the biggest positives are the younger players coming through. Like when you look at like Nanai and Luki, and you've got Fina Fuiaki, amazing players.
But he's gone to the Dolphins.
Yeah, but you know, and that's the hard part. Like you watch them. Like Gilbert was a great. Tom Gilbert was a great player, and it didn't really matter because he ended up getting injured, unfortunately for him at the Titans, because he's ACL. But why are we letting a lot of the young players go? I think they should be holding on to them. The positive is that you have those young guns coming through. Like Scott Drinkwater's still early on in his career.
Yeah,
Dearden is very early on in his
Robson's
career.
Still very young.
Robson's young, and he's a great hooker.
He played very well in game 1. I'm gonna say I was really disappointed that they chose him, right? But I thought Farah, he played so well in game 1.
He's a reliable hooker. That's what it is with Robson. He's a reliable defensively. He's there. Like you can trust him to be there. I know not everybody likes his style of play because he's not doing this razzle dazzle sort of stuff. But he's a great hooker. He's a dependable hooker. And I think Cowboys having him there is great. That's what frustrates me, is that we have a good team. When you look at the team on paper, why aren't we battling for the top 4?
Awakens asked, what are your thoughts on off-contract Chad Townsend?
I think they should let him go.
Yeah?
Personally, I think Townsend, it's time for him to move on. He was, I think, when he, the last couple of years when he took him to the finals and all that sort of stuff, but I think maybe age is a part of it catching up to him. I personally think just let his contract finish and just let him move on. I think it's time to bring in a new half, maybe a young half.
Not Clifford? You don't think Clifford's the answer there?
He was at the Cowboys and he didn't perform well. Maybe, I don't know if it was at the time, because he was at the Cowboys for years.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And then went to the Knights, didn't really perform.
Didn't he debut at the Cowboys?
Yeah, he debuted. I think as a Cowboys junior.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Knights, didn't do too well. Mate, look, I had my doubts about Dearden. Yeah. But look at him. The guy's really grown into his own shoes and really started to perform. And
100%.
I want Dearden to stay. I want Dearden to be there for the next 5, 6, 7 years at the Cowboys. But it's time to find him a new halves pairing.
Yeah.
I do think that it's Townsend. His time's up. I think I think a lot of players figured him out. I just think it's starting to get to a point where he's becoming a bit more unreliable in the halves position, and I think it does show sometimes with our attack.
Actually, do you know, on that very, very quickly, do you know I think who's also starting to show, who I think this should be their last year, and you're going to be very surprised? Sean Johnson.
He's starting to show, or it should be his last year?
It should be his last year.
Yeah.
It should be his last. Like you look at when they're attacking, when they had Tamari Martin and they were playing Chanel Harris-Tavita at 6 and 7, I thought they looked better in attack than when Sean Johnson came back. I love Sean Johnson. He's one of my favorite players ever, but he's definitely in that Chad Townsend part of his career.
Yeah, we're not saying they're bad players.
No, they're fantastic,
Johnson
bro. They've been there for how long?
Years,
yeah.
It does reach a point where,
for the sake of their team,
for them and for the sake of their team, he could potentially still stay around in another position. I don't know where you'd put him, or maybe into a coaching role where he helps, guide the younger players, gives them advice, gives them that mentoring. Or
I reckon goes to the UK, man. I reckon he'll kill. He'll kill it in the UK.
We know
he'll get Man of Steel there, bro. He'll get Man of Steel there.
NRL is at a different level when it comes to
absolutely.
I don't know how we lose sometimes
the World Cup challenge.
But nonetheless, when you look at the quality of the NRL, it's completely different.
100%, yeah. So quick, so aggressive. Like I think even Sean Johnson will do great at the UK, but I just don't think if the Warriors are serious about continuing to build momentum in New Zealand, I think, it pains me to say this, but I do think Sean Johnson's starting to show his age a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's become so predictable in attack.
How old is he now? In his 30s, at 34?
Pretty sure Sean Johnson's either 34 or 35.
Yeah, but we know in the NRL, once he gets to that point, it's the end. Do you remember Jason Smith?
Yeah, bro. Didn't he play till like till he was 50, bro?
He played with the Cowboys.
Yeah,
he ended up at the Cowboys at 36, 37. He did all right.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do too bad, but it catches up to you.
Yeah.
It does catch up to you.
Yeah, 100%. And Elmo Hakes, like Barrett should go coach Super League. I 100% agree, bro.
You know what?
100%
Give
agree.
it a crack.
He might come back later like Nathan Brown and still be shit, you know?
That's exactly it, right? I think my biggest issue with the Cowboys is it is that, they turn on, turn off very quickly. But every time another team's in our 20, my heart is my mouth. I feel like they're just going to let a try go through. Like,
they can't defend.
There are so many soft tries. I'm like, that should not be a try.
Yeah.
That should not be a try. That was way too simple for it to be a try. And it's so frustrating as a supporter. I think to yourself, like, hold out. And last week against the Raiders, they played so well and they defended so well on their try line. 65
minutes.
Exactly. And I was about to say that, like, they played so well up until the 65th minute and then they switched off.
But see, that's what I was talking about, fitness.
Yeah, and the fitness is probably not there.
Honestly, I think it is a fitness thing.
Could it be a fitness thing, or could it be that Payton is working him too hard as a coach, which is there's fatigue sets in? Because you can have fitness, but if they're not taking care of themselves and there's fatigue that sets in, then that could also be a factor. Is it trust? Like, are they not sort of trusting each other in defense? I don't know.
I always think when a team gets to the 60th minute, 65th minute, and they start to shit themselves, I always believe, or I always feel like it comes down to the fitness and the pressure training. So when you know how you do the training when you're under pressure and they ask you to make decisions, because that's why defense starts to shit itself. Yeah. Whereas when you look at the Panthers, the Storm, the Bulldogs, when they get under pressure, even in the final minutes, I feel like they're still a bit better. Like earlier in the year, like against the Storm, against the Rabbitohs and that, we didn't have that as much. But we've built into it where in the last 20 minutes, it's like we get a second wave of energy. And I feel like the Dolphins weren't, they're doing well, but I think they're lacking that fitness. The Sharks are lacking that fitness. The Cowboys definitely
Sharks
lacking.
are a weird one.
Yeah,
Like,
shit, bro.
like 1 week they're thrashing, the next week they're getting thrashed. It's like,
listen, Hines is a fullback being put at 7. I reckon Hines' best position should be fullback. I reckon if they move him to fullback, he will be a much better player for the Sharks than he's at 7. I genuinely believe that. I love Hines. I actually think, and that's why he's so good for when it comes to Supercoach and fantasy, because he's so busy. Right? He cares. He's got the commitment. He's not a bad player at all. I actually think he has the potential to be a great player. But I don't think he's actually an out-and-out 7.
Number 7, yeah.
Honestly, I genuinely believe he's not an out-and-out 7.
They're really trying to force it? Like,
I don't know. I don't think they're trying to force it. I just think that they bought him as a 7. He showed great potential as a 7, but when it comes down to it, in the big games, he can't perform as a 7.
Can't perform,
yeah. And I reckon he'll be better at half, at fullback, and if they have Trindle and the Atkinson at 6 and 7, I actually think that'll be a better team. Genuinely, I think they'll be a better team. But, that's down to them to sort of decide. But I think eventually they'll have to make that tough call. I genuinely think so. Because Hines is being found out a little bit. Hey, Chip, how you doing? Chip 98 wants us to talk about the Dragons. We're just gonna quickly finish off our Cowboys sort of mid-season review. So who's been your standout player for the Cowboys?
Look, it's hard. I don't know if there is, like, Drinkwater's always a standout player. Like, it's sort of like what you mentioned before. I think a lot of our tries and our attack comes from Drinkwater. And that's why I was saying before, we need to, like, Chad Townsend needs to move on, because I think we're heavily relying on Drinkwater now to attack and to score tries. He's reliable. I think he's playing really nicely. He's playing really well. He's coming into his...
I think he stood out for you guys.
He look... Especially because Colin Hess is out, even though I don't really rate Colin Hess. I feel like after he debuted for Origin, he went down from there.
Yeah.
But he has been a solid front row.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that there isn't really a standout is because they all drop in, drop out. And I think maybe Neem's probably a bit more consistent.
Yeah.
But we've got such a great team.
Bro,
on
you
paper,
guys should be top 4. Like,
we
you and the
should- we
Roosters
should be top
should
4.
be top
but
4
I'm not
any day of
sure
the
what's
week.
going on. Like, Ruben Cotter's another player that just week in, week out turns up. The guy comes onto the field. He's running. The guy.
See, it's weird. I don't rate Ruben Cotter at
You
all.
don't rate him? I
at
feel
all,
like
bro.
he's a workhorse.
Look, he's a workhorse, but like they put him at 8. Like it's the same as Curtis Moran. Like, I think that they're great for what they do, but I just don't think Ruben Cotter gets driven back so much. He doesn't make any post contact meters. Like, that's one of the things. Like maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I don't rate Ruben Cotter
You don't rate him
at all.
I think he's a great player, and I think he's a central part of the cat. He's a small prop.
He's a very small
he's
prop.
a tiny prop.
But him and Curtis Moran are literally,
Yeah.
they're carbon copies of each other. Like,
Yeah.
I look at Curtis Moran and I say, bro, we've got our own Ruben Cotter. And I love when he comes off the bench because he provides energy. But I don't know if he's that starting 8. That's what I don't think. You know what I mean? That's what I think. But then again, the game, like, you look at our props and we don't have big props anyway, like the Dogs. So maybe the coaches.
I think a reason why he's a starting 8 is because when you look at the Cowboys, it's where are their front rowers?
You reckon if Cohen Hess wasn't injured, he'd be starting alongside Griffin Neem?
He'd be starting. Yeah. The thing is, he's not even starting Griffin Neem now.
He was throughout the year.
He does, and then he puts him on the
he
interchange.
drops it with
and
McLean.
Like, keep it consistent.
Yeah.
Like, let a player know what his role is. Like, if he's a front row, maybe he wants to change him into that like more versatile role. But like, I think Filiaki has been playing pretty well. Like, for the Cowboys,
100%. He's been so good.
He's great. Like last week against the Raiders, he played 20 minutes. He didn't put Filiaki on until the second half.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but
the team was going so well. What do you?
They will, but that's probably why there was that fatigue.
They got tired at
towards
the end. Yeah.
Like, remember last year we were talking about Seraldo and his use of
the bench.
The bench wasn't. I don't think he was using his bench well, and I think that was probably a similar mistake. Like, just because a team is doing well, it doesn't mean that you don't take off a player and give him rest. Like even Tamalolo, like. Yes, he's not Tamalolo of 6 years ago, but I still feel like Tamalolo has a lot to give. The guy is still a decent player. I think he's still a great player for his age. But I think they told him, look elsewhere.
You don't think they should medically retire him because of his knee?
I still think he's got use in the Cowboys. I still
really?
I still think. Look, I know this might be unpopular, but maybe it's a soft spot for Tamalolo because I love Tamalolo.
Bro, he was just freak, bro.
The guy is a freak. One of the most at his prime, at his peak. But Tamalolo is one of those players that you can bring off the bench and has a really strong impact on the style of play.
So you think he's now sort of should be relegated to that bench position?
Either keep him at the lock position because at one point he was putting him in the middle, and I'm like, no.
You don't think so?
I don't put him in the middle.
Because he played very good against the Raiders up the middle.
He
played
did,
very,
but
very
you
good.
Can't, but put him in that lock in the middle where he can hover. But when I say don't put him in the middle, I mean don't put him in the front row because there was a stage where Todd Payton was putting him in the front row and you can see the fatigue. Like it was very evident that the fatigue was kicking in and he'd come off. And I still remember Payton a few years ago was playing him as you'd start him, and then you see the Cowboys drop off when he comes off. And then when he puts him back 100%. On, they pick up again. And maybe Tamalolo physically isn't at his peak, but I still think he offers that leadership on the field.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you might have a player that's not at his peak, but what he offers in that position of leadership and experience is what helps the other players around him. So,
I mean that's sort of the same for Townsend. I guess like if you get rid of Townsend, you lose a lot of experience.
But the difference is the halfback role is a crucial role.
Yeah, it's very critical.
It's critical to your attack. It's critical to the organisation of the team. Whereas a lock role, yes, it's important, but we all know that one of the most important roles in the NRL is the halfback. That's why they get paid the big dollars. So that's the difference. Townsend, I don't know. You want to move to the Tigers? Go to the Tigers. But I think it's time that they move him on.
So where do you think the Cowboys will finish?
Look, if they keep going the way they're going, I think we scrape the 8. Like if they keep playing the style they're playing, we're gonna scrape the 8. If Todd Payton gets it together, gets the shit together, we can. I'm telling you from now, the Cowboys should be a top 4 team, based on paper.
Yeah.
They should be a top 4 team. When you've got the likes of Dearden coming through, Drinkwater, Nanai, Luki coming through, Mikhail, Finafuyaki, they should be up there.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you.
But look at our back line. Like every week, Felt great player in terms of a winger. He can score some incredible tries.
And he did score
And he
actually on the
scored last
weekend. It was
week on
great.
the weekend, and he's doing well. But we've also got some younger players coming up.
They need to give him
Let him
shine.
Was it Semi from the Raiders? He came from the Raiders.
Semi Valame?
Yeah, Valame.
Yeah. And even that Vialia's killing it for you guys.
Like those players.
Bro, he's playing very well.
Valame, like, is he injured? Semi? Like, I don't.
No. But even when he got him last year, like he would play him on and off.
Yeah, but when he'd play, he'd score 2-3 tries a game.
But he's also got very bad defensive
He
deficiency.
does, and
that's the problem.
That's the decision. But Felt sometimes, I think Felt's improved defensively because there was a phase where he was just letting tries through.
Yeah.
But the Cowboys, I think, should be in the top 4.
No, I
should be
on paper, like the Dolphins shouldn't be anywhere near that.
But that's why it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Knowing what they're capable of. But you know what? They deserve to be where they are.
Mm.
And like as a Cowboys supporter, I'm being just very direct here and saying they deserve to be where they are because of the way that they're playing.
I don't think they'll make the 8.
You don't think the Cowboys?
I just think that there's other teams that, like, I just feel like there's something missing in the Cowboys.
There is, yeah.
I think there's something missing. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Payton's tactics. I don't know if it's something to do with Taumalola, them not wanting him there, or the team being off. Payton, there's something missing. Like, I reckon the Broncos are more of a chance of making the 8 than the Cowboys.
No, I don't doubt the Broncos are going to be in the 8. I think the Broncos should be in the 8. They will be in the 8.
But they'll crash and burn.
Yeah, look, like I said before, the only 2 teams that I think are genuine premiership contenders are Storms and Panthers. I don't know why the Broncos, obviously they've had injuries and all that sort of stuff, but they've still got a great team.
Bro, you look at their team on paper, bro, they should have eaten, bro, they should have destroyed the Rabbitohs.
You're talking about the Broncos?
The Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos have one of the best teams.
Bro, they should have destroyed the Rabbitohs.
Like,
I don't understand what happened there.
It's
just the attitude. It's like, I don't know. But, all right.
They're not playing like last year.
They're not.
Nowhere near.
Not even in the beginning. Like, all right, sure, they're missing Adam Reynolds. Agreed. But here's the thing. There's so much hype. And this is what I hate about rugby league is a player has 1 or 2 good games and all of a sudden he's the next big thing. Like, I think Ezra Mam is heavily overrated.
He had a good season last year.
No.
But
everyone had a good season at the Broncos.
Yeah, they did.
But as a playmaker, as someone that controls the team, he's not it.
I don't
like him and Jake Simpkin, they just can't do it.
When I say Ezra Mam, I don't see him as that lead half. I see him more of like that razzle dazzle. Like he provides that spark every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a 7. And I think that's the Broncos. Obviously, Reynolds, that's a big gap.
Yeah,
that
100%.
Space. Broncos should be in the 8. Like
Broncos should be in the 4.
Broncos should be in the 4 based on the team that they've got. Absolutely.
Yeah. So should the Roosters.
Yeah. The Roosters, look, I think what's happening with the Roosters, and they're not doing too badly. Yeah. They're number 5, but a lot of their team has been around for a while.
Bro, you know what, bro? You want to know the truth, bro? Robinson is not a good coach.
He's not a bad coach.
He's not a good coach.
But like, it's similar to what I was saying before, like with Brad Arthur. When you do something over and over and over and over again and you're trying the same tactics, you eventually get caught out. You're not going to win a premiership. It happened with the Dogs. I still believe with Des Hasler. I think Des Hasler's a great coach.
He's a mad coach.
He's an incredible coach.
Yeah, 100%.
But and he made those grand finals with the Dogs. But once he left the Dogs and he went back to the Sea Eagles, it's like he was using the same tactics over and over again.
Yeah,
you need to change it. And I think that's the Roosters. The Roosters are a team that have been around and they've been together for a long time. Like you've still got Tedesco, you've still got Tupou, you've still got Kiri, you've still got a lot of the even Kiri. I think did he retire? Did he announce retirement or
apparently he's considering backflipping and going to the UK or something like that?
Yeah, you know. So I think it gets to a point where a team has been around for too long. It's time to dismantle and rebuild. And I think the Roosters need to potentially look at that.
Honestly, look, you're right. I do think so, but they're going to be losing 5 or 6 players at the end of the year.
So it might be time, but Robinson needs to move on.
I just don't think Robinson. Honestly, I reckon if you put Robinson in a team that needs to be rebuilt, I reckon Robinson will be found out as a really bad coach. I genuinely like if you put him at the Tigers, he'll shit himself.
Yeah.
I genuinely think if you put someone like Robinson at the Tigers, he'll shit himself.
Yeah.
I just don't think he has that nous.
And it's funny what happened. Didn't Fafita sign up with them? And
yeah, he backflipped. Bro, it was so good. I love the fact that he backflipped on the Roosters and they can't sign anyone. It's so good, bro.
Yeah, and then they tell Crichton that you're not needed anymore.
Oh, something like that. Yeah, they didn't want to talk to him. Now Crichton's like, I want exactly what we're going to give Fafita. God. Very quickly, so Chip98 asked us to talk about the Dragons.
Yeah.
The Dragons are not going to make the 8. The Dragons are not on the same level as the Bulldogs, as as the Dolphins, as the Raiders. I just don't think they're it. The problem with the Dragons is this. This is where their best game is, and this is where their worst game is. And the gap is too big, and anytime they're under any pressure, they cannot handle it.
Yeah.
They have no resilience, no tenacity whatsoever. Like, bro, Manly had 4 injuries in the first half. And Manly was still winning.
Yeah.
How do you lose to that? Like, we thought the Eels loss was bad against the Bulldogs. We had 3 injuries. These guys had 4 injuries. 2 of their props were injured, and they still found a way to shit themselves.
Yeah.
Like, for me,
and shit themselves well. Not like I lost by 2 points.
No. Like we got smashed. Like, you lost by 13 plus. Like that for me is a smashing.
That's a thrashing. 30-14 is a thrashing.
Do you know what I mean?
And they have their full team.
I'm
not sure they have any injuries.
Jack Bird.
Yeah, but come on.
Yeah,
are you really gonna?
Exactly.
Are you gonna really say like Jack Bird is a big miss, like a missing piece of the puzzle?
Bro,
Bird's time was a long time ago.
2015, he played in that grand final, or 2016, played in that grand final, won the grand final. He played very well, went to the Broncos, it was over. That's it.
He got injured.
Hasn't been the same since.
Been the same. So you can't say Jack Bird is the reason why. Like I don't know what it is about the Dragons. Whether they still need a few more years, but when you go and get rid of a player like Zach Lomax, one of your best players, and he's a winger.
Dibba is so upset the fact that they're getting rid of Lomax.
Then
he still calls him Slomax, but he admits that he's in career best form.
He's having a great step. Like you turn the TV on, this guy's doing backflips to score a try. And again, their team on paper isn't that impressive either. I don't.
But it's not that bad. Like you look at
bad, but it's not great.
Yeah, and
that's why they're very mediocre. Like there's weeks where then they click well, they play well, but when they don't play well, they don't play well.
Yeah, but hang on a second. What in their team says that they can't defend a lead or can't handle the pressure whatsoever? Nothing in that team says to me that their team is that bad that they can't handle pressure.
So what do you think it is? Do you think it's more of like a mentality issue?
I reckon Ben Hunt's the problem.
Do you think so?
100%.
Because he was ready to leave. Like
he
made it very clear.
Shane Flanagan should be like, thank you very much. And just blood some. Bro, they've got Jesse Marshke. He's pretty good. I'm not saying he's a Ben Hunt, but I'm saying if you want the Dragons to be the great club that we know the Dragons could be, you need to start making some tough decisions. And I reckon Ben Hunt, as great as he is, needs to get the flick. I genuinely believe that.
To the Broncos?
Bro, it doesn't matter. UK, wherever you want to go. But I reckon the Dragons, to be better, need to get rid of Dragon. Need to get and a lot of Dragons supporters. My family, I'm surrounded by Dragon supporters. Unfortunately, they agree, right? Yeah. They think that Ben Hunt needs to go. I think that Cole Flanagan is good at 6, right? But I think he's a better 14.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that they need to make some of those tough decisions. Like even they bought Luciano Leilua, Raymond Faitala-Mariner, Tom Eisenhuth. Like I don't think Luciano Leilua and Raymond Faitala-Mariner were it for them. They don't have that leadership quality. They don't have that, that I'm gonna be here in the tough times and in the good times. Yeah. I just don't get that from Leilua and from Raymond. And I mean, Leilua played for you guys at the Cowboys.
Yeah, and look, he was okay.
He was okay.
Okay. That's the thing.
That's it.
That's what I was telling you. Like overall, like when you look at their team, they're an okay team.
Like, but they're making poor decisions, and I think Flanagan's got to be better. Yeah. That's what I think. I think Flanagan's got to make some tough decisions. Like the Couchman brothers, he's finally blooding them. I think they're great. Fear now and some of these younger guys, he's finally bringing them in. But it's like, at the end of this season, he's going to make some tough calls. That's what I genuinely
he's going to cut like some players. And
100%.
And it could be that, look, Ben Hunt, it's time to move on. Like, it could be.
I reckon they'll re-sign him, but I reckon that's a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon that's a mistake.
But would he re-sign, though?
Yeah, he said he's happy to resign. He said he's happy.
After the whole saga of wanting to leave.
That's what I'm saying. Why would you want to re-sign him? Just tell him Allah Ma'ak. That's what I reckon. But yeah, that's the Dragons. Quick question. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the Tigers?
The Tigers, I think we touched on it a bit.
Yeah.
I think you're right in what you were saying, that the Tigers are where the Dogs were. I think we need to give them some time to build. Galvin's is going to be a great half. I think they'll get there.
Yeah, 100%.
But don't expect much from him this year.
Again, not this year.
Don't expect much from him this year. I think let Benji because Benji last year was his first year as a
this is his first year. He only coached for 4 games.
It was like towards the back end of the series. What do you want him to do in 4 games?
Well, 100%.
And he's had an off season. Give him some time to figure out what he wants to do. It's not easy when you have what was his name again? The coach. I can't believe I forgot his name.
Tim Sheens.
Tim Sheens, beat us in the grand final. But Tim Sheens was a good coach. He shouldn't have come back into the coaching position.
Hang on. 100%.
And I think you can tell that he was controlling everything when Benji and was in the place. So it might be some time before Benji gets rid of those habits that he probably picked up from Tim Sheens. I think he needs to find himself. Give him till the end of the year, early next year. If you don't see those changes, then maybe it's not for him. Maybe it's a Super League coach.
No. I reckon Benji needs to be given like 2 to 3 years. Like, look, you know what? Last year, everyone's like, "Oh, Cameron Ciraldo was the worst of the what's it called? The worst of the two Panthers assistants. Andrew Webster's this, Andrew Webster's that." Bro, I love Andrew Webster. I'm so happy for what he's doing at the Warriors. Yeah. I support and back him 100%. Wallah, no shit talk about Webster at all. But Ciraldo's come out this year and he's proven it's going to be, if we make the top 8 or the top 4, this is going to be one of the most radical turnarounds in form we've ever seen in rugby league. And he's going to be the man that will forever be known as the one that turned around the struggling Bulldogs. Yeah. Right? So, and I think Benji has that opportunity, and I genuinely believe Benji will do it. I genuinely think that people at the West Tigers walk around in awe of what Benji did for the Tigers. Yeah. Right? And I think he's got to continue to refine his assistant coaching staff. He's got to get rid of Farah. I think Farah's a poison.
I've heard, I don't know too much about like the insides, but I've heard that there is that part of like maybe Robbie Farah's interfering. I'm not sure.
Honestly, I reckon he's a poison. Get rid of him.
That's where Benji's leadership has to come in and say, well, I'm going to have to make tough decisions. And I think that's a good coach. Yeah. A good coach is one's like, well, it's going to cause some problems, but I need to make some tough decisions.
And Mothman's pointed out they've had strong juniors for a while, and I agree. Like, they've got Campbelltown, they produce incredible juniors. Like, probably only second or third to like the Panthers and the Broncos. But other than that, their juniors are fantastic, and they keep producing them year after year.
Tigers are known. To have. When I used to play footy, I used to play in the Dragons comp. We used to hate versing the Tigers juniors because they were good players, 100%. And they had really strong teams. So like they've got that. A lot of from West's juniors and also the Balmain Tigers juniors. They were all great players. So they've got that, but again, that doesn't always translate into
exactly.
Is it going to come through the ranks? Are they going to keep him or are other clubs lurking around waiting for?
Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to now, like to the new leadership, to Benji wanting to make them a part of his direction moving forward. Now, Dogs versus Roosters. Bro. Earlier in the year, we put like 26 on them in the first half, and they come back and almost beat us.
Yeah, that was
a bit of a weird game. That was a weird game, but we won. Yeah. Now, the Dogs team, this is very exciting. I'm not sure if you've heard, but Jarrell Skelton is in the team in place of Crichton. So Kiraz has moved to the centres. Skelton's on the wing in place of Kiraz. Jarrell Skelton is averaging about 250 metres a game in New South Wales Cup. Yeah. He has the most line breaks and the most tackle breaks, literally far away by like twice as much as any other player in the game. This guy is barnstorming winger. He's got the best attack. Like, this guy's a freak.
He's debuting.
He debuted last year, played a couple of games. He's playing this week against the Roosters. He's going to be lining up against Daniel Tupou. Ooh. All right, Daniel Tupou, his one advantage is his height, but Jarrell Skelton, I reckon, is going to run this guy over.
Look, and Tupou's at the back end of his career as
well. Yeah, honestly, like, you can tell.
And Tupou, one of his main advantages is his height. Yeah. Like, the guy could stand there and catch the ball without most players are jumping, and this guy's just standing there catching the ball. So I think it'll be a good matchup. Like, I think both teams are missing a couple of players, especially because of the origin. So probably not going to give us a great, representation of like where they're at. But I think maybe it's a tough one. Look, Burden is playing, which it makes a big difference. Yes, Crichton is missing, and there's a couple of players missing, but I think the Dogs take this one.
You reckon?
Yeah.
What I'm really interested to see is, I remember on Twitter I said that Blake Wilson, our number 5, has an X factor about him as a winger. If you watch the Eels game, bro, this guy was one of the best on field. Blake Wilson was fantastic. Like, I could not believe how good he was playing, and I reckon he's going to cause a lot of trouble for the Roosters. I think he'll cause a lot of trouble with his speed and with his step. Yeah. Very happy to see Burden there, obviously, because now we've got our halves combination. And I think Toby Sexton's going to be very, very key. Yeah. Josh Curran starts in the second row, right? For the first time in a while. And then Bailey Hayward is back as well. He's going to be at lock.
Yeah.
A little ginger pubes is there at 13. He's been fantastic for us. His passing game, the way he's been linking up our halves has been really, really good. Now, what's interesting is at number 23 is Viliami Kikau.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I'm like, what's he doing at number 23?
I think that Viliami Kikau comes onto the bench. I think Viliami Kikau comes onto the bench for, I think it'll probably be Pawasa or Lipoi. But I think he will play if he's named in the 23. It means he can play.
Yeah,
he will definitely be playing off the bench. It's about making where
is it the right time? Yeah. Is it the right time though? Look, the fact that the Dogs are versing are also an under strength. Like both teams aren't at their 100% capacity, but it might probably be a good. I don't know. Obviously, it depends on the coach and where he's at, but it could be mind games, like just popping him in there and then putting him in last minute.
Look, he's always said, Serraldo's always said the team that he names generally on Tuesdays is just for the media, just to give them something. Yeah. But he doesn't make final decisions until 24 hours before. So I think without a shadow of a doubt, I actually think it may even be possible that Kikau goes straight into the starting lineup. Josh Curran drops to the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. You know, even Jacob Preston was touch and go. He could have been named in the team, but they didn't. Like, there's no need to rush him.
I actually like Preston.
Preston's a freak, bro.
He's such a good player.
He's
like the way that he can pluck a try out of thin air or like out of nothing, or you know,
he runs hard.
He runs really hard.
He's not a big boy, but he runs good lines. Good tackles like his ass off.
The guy's good.
I think it's interesting that they've got Brandon Smith back starting after they dropped him last week for his indiscretions. I actually think that Sandon Smith is playing better than Brandon Smith.
Brandon Smith needs a good coach.
He does.
He does. Yes, he's probably a bit loose. Like he's a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's why Bellamy was so good for him.
Yeah.
Bellamy is one of those coaches that doesn't take shit.
Yeah, 100%.
He's he's like a dad figure, you know?
Yeah.
He's one of those coaches that will put you in your place. You don't like it, there's the door.
Yeah.
I'm not taking your bullshit. And I think that's and you know, he talks about, like, Bellamy talks about, like, I've read a couple of articles on, like, when Cam Munster was at the Storm as a young guy, and he goes to him, if you don't want to be here, we don't need you.
Yeah, 100%.
And even though Munster was like this up and coming, you know, protege, this junior superstar, and I think that's why Smith played so much better at the Storms, is that he had that leadership, mentor, and again, obviously it's not just the coach's responsibility. You need to be putting your part into it. But maybe that's what he needs, because he hasn't performed. He has not performed once. There's not one game that I've turned on and thought, Brandon Smith is playing well.
Yeah.
Every time I watch the Roosters, I'm like, Brandon Smith is playing below what he could be playing.
100%. And I even feel like he gets in the way of the attack sometimes. Like, it's weird. I feel like sometimes he just stumbles his way through at 9. Honestly, I feel like Sandon Smith will be a better 9 for them. You know, I think the other interesting inclusion here is you know, them still having James Tedesco. I think that's very interesting. I would have loved to see Joey Manu at fullback again. I just love seeing him there. But look, I think the Roosters still have a very, very strong team. Their depth is great. The one guy that's going to give us trouble will probably be the Fahu White, their number 13, bro. He's such a mad runner of the ball. But ultimately, I actually think that the Bulldogs will suffocate the Roosters' attack, and then we'll get them towards the back end. Chip98, Dragon supporter, is saying that it's going to be Roosters 13 plus.
Yeah, look, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think the Dogs have a good team. They've lost a couple of players or whatever. It's a couple of players are injured and all that sort of stuff. But the majority of the team's still there. It's intact. Like, it's...
I mean, especially if Viliami Kikau comes back in. Do you know what I mean?
It changes the game.
If he's running at Nat Butcher all day, or if he's running at Sam Walker or Luke Keary all day, bro, he'll just run riot over them. I'm actually saying the Bulldogs. I was going to say 13 plus, but I don't know. I think we'll probably win by maybe 8 to 10 points. I'll say, but I reckon the Roosters will put 3 tries on us, and the Bulldogs will probably score. I reckon they'll probably score between 28 and 30 points.
So you think it'll be like a high scoring game?
I think the Roosters will score no more than 3 tries or no more than 18 points, and the Bulldogs will go away with it in the second half. Yeah. I just think that Toby Sexton and Matt Burton are onto something. I just like I can't explain it. And everyone I talk to thinks, oh, you're just a Doggy supporter. But genuinely, bro, I'm trying to be as like objective as I can be. I think the Bulldogs, their attack is going to do something special.
Yeah. I'm with you. I personally think Dogs 13 plus.
You reckon?
Only because, like, I look at the Roosters team and I know you're like, oh, they're a good team and they're a great team and they still do have like a pretty decent team, but I'm not convinced.
Me either.
I really look at that and think, look, there's a lot of faces that have been there for a long time. You're part of the furniture. Time to move on. Will it show up on the day? You know, is Warrior Hargraves going to have one of those brain snaps and do something throughout the game?
Probably.
And the Roosters are missing.
Can you imagine Reed Money niggling Jared Warrior Hargraves? Bro.
If you get under his skin, it's game over because Hargraves can sort of become like that. But like they're missing Crichton, Watson, Lindsay Collins. I know people like Lindsay Collins. The guy's a good player. Yeah. He's a good player. You know, not really missing much with Michael Jennings, but
I mean James Tedesco. Like if you had James Tedesco, like I'm more comfortable with James Tedesco at fullback for the Roosters than I am with Joseph Manu. Like I think that James Tedesco is the type of player the Bulldogs will shut down so well.
Tedesco?
Yeah.
I think he's having a better season this year than last year. But again, it's that back end of the career sort of that phase where they're starting to get figured out.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, people know them. They know their style of play. Doesn't mean they're a bad player. It just means like the game's evolved and it changed. And if you've been playing a certain style your whole career, people figure you out. It's very hard to change that style. So I do think Tedesco this year is having a much better season than last year. But so I think
a better fullback and should.
Manu's a bit younger as well, and he should be fullback. But you can't get rid of your captain and say, "Hey, you're not fullback anymore."
Yeah, I know that's the difficulty of it, right?
And if it wasn't for Madge coming into the Blues coaching role, Fittler was going to choose Tedesco again. I don't care you can argue with me all day, but he was going to re-pick Tedesco because
Fittler's fried, bro.
And like they even had like an advertisement last year for like Tedesco being the captain for the Blues, I think on TV. And it's like imagine you drop Tedesco, so I think there was that pressure of advertising and all that sort of stuff. So
it's Kentucky Fried Fittler. That's what I reckon it is, bro.
Fittler had that one series win or whatever it is.
And that was on the back of Turbo and Latrell, to be honest.
And then it's like, well, Fittler's the messiah for the Blues. Like, no, he's not.
Look, I really want to thank everybody that's been with us this whole time. It's been such a mad chat. We could keep going for another hour if you really wanted to, but I think we're sort of coming right to the end of it. I'm going to predict a strong Bulldogs win. We're going to win 4 in a row. We're going to start, setting our claim on a top 4 position and start building up towards the finals. Very, very quickly, Mothman has said, unpopular opinion, we should let Fox go next year and keep Wilson on his wing. Look, I don't want to lose Wilson, but I think that with Fox, what he brings to the team is more than just his presence. I think that someone like Fox brings the energy, he brings the attitude, he brings that camaraderie that has made us so successful. So it's a tough call to say, well, we shouldn't keep Fox. I love Fox, and I think, I'd love to see Fox retire at the Bulldogs and take up a community position afterwards because everybody loves him.
You can tell about Fox. Like when you watch the videos, he's like everybody. There's this energy that comes with him. So like you said, even though can get quite injured quite frequently. He just brings the energy.
And you see Crichton also loves it. Like having Fox and Crichton there, both high energy, both leaders, both like wonderful players. It just brings something to the team that I think is making everybody want to be there.
It reminds me of Crichton and To'o. Like how they had that relationship. Bro, now it's like it's
partners
in
crime
and Fox.
Crichton did, Crichton probably thought to himself, I'm going to lose To'o or Romy, right? They're not going to have there. But now he's got Fox, his new partner in crime. And I think that's adding a lot to the team. And like I actually think if the Bulldogs go out to the market to try and get someone, because we've got someone like Crichton there, Fox there, building that camaraderie, I don't think we're going to struggle to get players now. And that's what I think you can't really measure in success. Like you can't, it's not tangible. It's something that is behind the scenes that only the coach sees or only the other players see. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, with that, I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been such a great chat. Really love having you on, Tareq. If I would love to have you on again. Anytime, any place. If there's ever like a Cowboys game that you want to review or just a Cowboys only episode, I'd love to do that, bro. It's such a pleasure to have you. It was just so much fun. You and I talk so much shit. We go way back. Love talking footy. But look, thank you again for joining, bro. Any last words before we go?
Yeah, look, refereeing, that's it. I'm just going to say, listen, something needs to change. This entire sin binning.
Oh, we're going to get to the refereeing.
Yeah, just quickly, that just a couple of weeks ago when Tavita Harris was sin bin for throwing the ball at Townsend's head. And then Townsend got sin bin.
For what?
No one knew. Even the commentator said, like, why did he get sin bin because he had the ball thrown at his head? So things like that, honestly, are getting in the way of the game. And I just thought I had to say that. Otherwise, look, it's been a pleasure. And up the Cowboys. Hopefully they can fix things. Maybe not.
Look, have they won 4 in a row now?
No, they got thrashed just last week against the Warriors, and then they won against the Raiders.
Oh, I thought they won a few games in a row.
No, they got hammered by the Warriors, and then they.
You guys have the bye this week, though.
Yeah, and they have the bye. So,
how do you guys think we'll go?
It's gonna be a tough one, you know. If we've got our team and we show up.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys. Look, really appreciate it. If you have made it to the end, just make sure you like this video, subscribe, share. If you haven't seen the Josh Reynolds episode yet, go ahead and watch the Josh Reynolds episode. It's really, really good. We have another really, really exciting episode coming up next week with another former Doggies legend that will be out in a couple of weeks' time. Keep your eye out for that. Follow us on Insta, follow us on Twitter, follow us on all your socials. Thank you very much. We hope you have a great night, and I hope the Parramatta Eels lose. Have a good one.